right, so moving on into the year 2005, let's see what we have here. Deoxys, Dash, and Darkness. That's their theme for 2005. So the next movie we had was Pokemon Destiny Deoxys. And this one was one of my personal favorites, so I guess I'll go ahead and dive into it first. But in this movie, you basically had that showdown between Deoxys and Rayquaza. And basically throughout this movie, if I can remember all the details to their exact specifications and whatnot, though. But I just remember the highlights in the movie, how basically you had it's kind of like this futuristic kind of town. It was like very technologically advanced and whatnot. And basically you had Deoxys show up on the Earth from a meteor crash, and basically it came up through here and through its psychic abilities and whatnot, kind of threw off everything, and it was just attacking everything because it was looking for the other Deoxys that was actually there. So nice little, nice little plot that it had going for the movie. So I'll let SBL go ahead and talk about what she has to say.
I feel like it was a good movie. Um, I haven't seen it in a while though, so I don't remember too much.
And then you, Northern.
It was a pretty good film, and this one was not really 100% about Ash saving the world, but rather it was mostly about some random boy who was getting rid of shiniest of Pokemon through the love of seeing two other Pokemon. And it was like a nice change a little bit, but at the end, it also was teaching the fact that you can't always trust technology, because sometimes technology doesn't help you as much.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's about all we have to say for Destiny and Deoxys. And then moving on, we have Pokemon Dash, which we hadn't really kind of gone through and played. And now we have another big one, Pokemon Emerald version. Now, we kind of already did our diving into Ruby and Sapphire, so I'll go ahead and start talking about this one. But main thing that made Emerald different from Ruby and Sapphire was the stuff that Rayquaza was kind of throwing in with. So basically, oh, and mainly the conflict between Team Aqua and Team Magma. This was the first time you're actually able to have both of them interact within the same story, so that made it interesting. You go over here and do your Team Aqua involvement, then turn around and do Team Magma. And then whenever they did that final showdown at the very end in Pseudopus City, where both these Pokemon were duking it out, and the weather was changing from sunny to rain, and back and forth. It was the first little bit of animated scene that you got to see up in the video game of Rayquaza coming all the way from that tower and flying all the way straight into the city. So that little bit of animation was all pretty cool. And then the next biggest thing that was added up in MMO would be the Battle Frontier. When you have the seven basic Battle Frontiers, you can actually go through, and if you collect enough wins, you can actually manage to play against these Battle Frontier brands. However, it's not the easiest thing in the world, and I hadn't successfully actually collected all seven, but I have to see if I can go back in my free time to see if I can actually manage to rack up some. But overall, the Battle Frontier was the last addition to the game. So, Espeon, you have anything to add to this?
Nope.
And you know everyone?
The only real thing was that the fact that this game was actually harder than Ruby and Sapphire, because the fact that like there were more Pokemon added to the gym leaders. My God, freaking six gyms, Altaria. That was just a nightmare. It was worse than Whitney's like Miltank.
Now, wait a second. Was that only because you started with Sceptile, or eventually had a Sceptile in the Blaziken?
I don't remember what I had, but it was like either way, it just the only way you defeat it is if you had an Altaria of your own, or if you had somebody who knows ice attack or a dragon attack, and that's like literally too hard to get to that point.
See, I think I remember whenever I went through that game, I usually always had like a Manectric or something like that. I had an electric type, even though the dragon kind of canceled it out a little bit. I was able to get an average amount of hits on it, and if it tried to use a flying type move on me, it was not very effective. So I think that's how I managed to power my way through that gym. But the gym that gave me the hardest out of all these gyms throughout the Pokemon history, I say that double battle of the Psychic Gym and Mississippi Gym.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
definitely the
that was,
hardest for me whenever I did start off with Torchic, because whenever that thing evolved into a Blaziken, yeah, that thing was super effective on me. So it was easier if you had Sceptile or Swampert at that point, though. If you had a Blaziken and you had to pull out all your stops, had to teach Dynamic Punch to use them,
yeah,
had to have a Gardevoir raise its special defense up to its max, yada yada yada. That was about the hardest gym
yeah.
I have ever
Both
gone through.
both of those two were really the two memorable that were really hard because of the fact that like Altaria knew Earthquake, and then like that both of them because you had to get rid of a Xatu and a Claydol before you even had a chance to get rid of the Solrock and Lunatone.
So yeah, I think that's about all we have to say about Emerald. And I guess we can go ahead and move on to Pokemon Gale of Darkness that was released on GameCube. Now, I hadn't had much experience on this, but the one thing I will talk about, the little fun aspect of it before I let somebody else dive into this, is I had never played this game, but whenever I was playing Diamond or Platinum, it was one of those two games. I actually, when the GTS was still up and available before they shut down all the Wi-Fi stuff on the DS systems, I actually managed to get a Lugia through one of my trades, and I was going through and looking through the stats, and I saw on there that it knew Psycho Boost, and I was like, I pulled it up on Cerebi, and I was like, wait, there's no way that this thing's supposed to know it unless. And I looked it up, and it said that this Lugia, if it knows this move, it came from Gale of Darkness. And I was like, oh wow. So it was kind of unique how I hadn't played the game, but I managed to actually get the Lugia. And the story behind that is whenever you do manage to finally beat the Shadow Lugia at the end, you can actually transfer it to your Pokemon Emerald game, I do believe. So you can actually play it, and it comes with the move Psycho Boost. So that makes that Lugia special and unique from any regular Lugia. So that's the only thing I had to chime in on the game. So Northern, you have anything to add to it?
Not much because I only played for like about 10-15 minutes of it, but it was basically a different world where you can just where half of the Pokemon were dark and you had to get or they're known as shadow Pokemon and you had to catch them all. But it was just like an interesting twist on things. But that's really all I have to say. But it's not really like part of the actual series.
Okay, and then Espeon, you have something?
Nope.
And I'm guessing that Glaceon probably doesn't have anything either.
That's how it is.
All right, so we move on into 2006. And in 2006, that was whenever Pokemon had its first big anniversary, which was when it turned 10 years old. So it was officially a decade old. So they did a bunch of fun events for that time whenever the games released. But then the next game we had was Pokemon Charles Day, if I'm saying that right. None of us had any experience with that game. So we move on ahead. Let's see here. And you had some Pokemon World tournaments and stuff with the card game series, which we'll cover towards the very end. The next biggest thing we had was Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red and Blue for Game Boy Advance. Now, I didn't play this version of the Mystery Dungeon series, but I had played the game that comes after it next. So I can't really say much about it, though, but I'll let the others talk about it if they have anything to say about it. So, Northern, did you have something to say about this one?
Yeah, this is the game, one of the games outside of the main series that I did play. And I did play the DS version of it. It was like a simple rescue mission game where you're basically start off by they asking you like 5 random questions. And based on the way how you answer them, you're basically set up as a random Pokemon and you basically you're set up on a different team and you're just randomly saving other Pokemon, leveling up, evolving, and all of that. But it's a pretty interesting story. But I do recommend you playing it because it's a pretty interesting.
And yeah, I believe Northern was the only one that actually managed to play that game. So we'll dive into it whenever they have the next game in the series involvement. All right, and then next comes a big fan favorite, Pokemon Lucario and the Mystery of Mew.
Uh,
Now, this one it caught a lot of fans' attention and it was well praised. And since it was well praised, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into this one first. So Lucario and the Mystery Mew, you had Ash and you had well, the unique thing about this one was this movie was heavily focused around Lucario, and it was very nice to see his personality come across. And basically, you had Ash and May and the rest of the gang come to this castle, and then you had the staff that was originally owned by Sir Aaron. And Ash, throughout the movie, was constantly reminded of Ash because he had that same aura and that same attitude like him. But anyway, Lucario comes out of that staff, and he was like, basically, he had a trip from way back to ancient past to all the way to modern society, and that was a big major change for him. And ultimately, they had to. He had him and as well as the rest of the gang. They had to head all the way back up to the top of the mountain, the tree. I can't remember the exact name of it again though, but
Tree of
that
Beginning.
tree of beginning. There we go. They had to head back to the tree of beginning, all the way over there, to basically save the land from ultimately destroying itself. So I'll stop right there and I'll let some other people go ahead and talk about it. So Espion, you can go first.
This is probably my favorite Pokemon movie and probably one of my favorite movies of all time. I really liked how they wasn't like sort of like in Celebi we kind of get the alludes to another time, but in this we get flashbacks to Lucario's time, which was sort of like it takes place in like the medieval times of the Pokemon world, which I thought was really interesting. Um, I feel like I would love for Pokemon to come back to this and like explore more of like Sir Aaron's time, and the whole kingdom of Rota in general. And the ending of this movie, I don't want to give any spoilers, but uh, it's a very emotional movie in my opinion.
All right, and then Northern, you had something to say?
Um, the I did like it, but the part that was kind of like not really happy about was the fact that like it shows that the fact that Ash had this amazing aurora and he could become Aurora Master, but they never touch upon it later on. It was just like for this film he had an aurora.
Actually, in the Diamond and Pearl series, they referenced it slightly.
Yeah, but it was like for like 2 episodes, but that was it, and it was like it wasn't the same kind of aura. It was like he was connected to some Riolu that was some prince of some kingdom. That's all it. That's all it had. But in this one, it seems like he can actually become an actual master. But then they never touched upon the fact that he could be a master again.
Actually, in one of the Diamond and Pearls, there's another one where there's a story of a Aura Guardian, and there's this older lady that mentioned Ash could become an Aura Guardian, and Ash said that he'd rather become a Pokemon Master. So that kind of closed off the whole Ash Aura story in that
Mm-hmm.
episode. It was an episode with a Spiritomb, but I don't remember the name of it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I remember that one. I can't remember the name either though, but I do remember that episode. So yeah, it was it was nice little interesting thing. And Northern, were you done with that, or were you done with what
Yeah.
you were saying? All
Yeah.
right, and then Glaceon, did you have anything to chime in on this movie, or?
I have watched most of the Pokemon movies, as you probably just heard.
All right, so you got a little bit of homework to accomplish because this one, put that on the list with one, two, and three, and then continue it up with this one because that one was real good. So just ending the thing off, basically, this is the movie. You also had the three Reggies showing up: Reggie Steel, Reggie Rock, Reggie Eyes. And you had Ash kind of duking it out all the way across the thing. You had Mew return back in this one, which it was nice kind of seeing it playfully go around and stuff. And then seeing its final moments with Lucario at the end. And guess the last final moment when Lucario
No
did his
spoilers.
hero moment. It was very emotional. So yes, go back. and rewatch the movie if you hadn't watched it or hadn't watched it in a long time, where you can't recall it in a certain moment though. But anyway, and then one other thing interesting to point out was this is one of the few movies that you can actually go back to remember and see that, and actually see that how, golly, see how the Pokemon, you had a brand new generation of Pokemon that was actually introduced before they actually were known within the anime games. And this one being Lucario himself, which was like, everybody was like, at the moment when the movie first released, they're like, wait, what is this? And you also have Weavile in the background as well. So that's just an interesting note to point out, because I think currently right now we're kind of seeing that with the new Pokemon that actually released for the for the Volcanion, if I'm saying that right, Volcanion movie. So we have a
I
brand
think
new
it's
one
right.
like that. Oh, say what? Oh, but anyway, so yeah, that was just one interesting thing to kind of point out. So next on the list we have Pokemon Ranger series. Now, out of those four, I'm the one with the most experience out of these games. So every time this series game pops up, I'll kind of cover it. But within Pokemon Ranger, a different type of spin from the original stuff as a whole in general. You had basically, and this was shown throughout the anime episodes, and it's also kind of showed within the next movie we're about to talk about here soon. Pokemon Rangers are completely different from trainers. They rather, instead of catch a Pokemon, they actually capture it by releasing this disc out and swinging their arms in circles and kind of befriending them by making loops for other Pokemon. So basically, that's the main aspect about that game. You capture and befriend Pokemon for brief periods of time. You use them to destroy down obstacles in your way, and you had not rival, you had evil organizations against you, and in this one it was Go Rock Squad in this version. So the Go Rock Squad were essentially going around using their devices to capture their own Pokemon in certain ways, and basically you have to go and protect and defend all the Pokemon. And I won't give away the final moments though of their boss intentions and all of that though. But overall, the good thing about Ranger Gaming series is it's more focused on story rather than, since you don't have to train the Pokemon, it's more focused on story, which that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about this series. So moving on ahead, we got the year 2007, and this is when things get interesting. 7 sites for Sinnoh. Now, before we head into Sinnoh, we got Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea movie. This is one of my all-time favorites again, and I'll get my quick chime in real quick. In this one, you had Manaphy, and this was more Manaphy with May. So this was kind of a movie that was more focused towards May in this regard. And you also had your Pokemon Ranger reference within this, and it was just kind of promoting it as well. So basically, you had this Ranger, and his goal was to return Manaphy back into the sea, in which also in the Pokemon Ranger games, you can also download that special mission, and you can also kind of go through a similar thing within the Pokemon Ranger games, though. But anyway, so you had Ash and them, and they had to basically transport this egg that this guy this evil organization guy, he also wanted as well. So basically, you just had this conflict going back and forth between these two. And I'll stop right there, and I'll allow Espeon to go ahead and dive into this one.
I really like this movie. Of course, as I mentioned, the Lucario movie remains my favorite. Probably my favorite thing about this movie was, like some movies before, it wasn't focused just on Ash, but more Manaphy, May, and Ash, and the relationships between them.
All right, and then Northern, you got something to say?
Yeah, but spreading upon what Espeon kind of said about the bond between the three, it was kind of like an advanced shipping story that May's the mother of his kid, and somehow it adopted Ash as the father. And it was just basically this whole film. The reason why I kind of liked it early on, but now it's kind of getting, it was kind of like a nostalgia feeling to it, but not really loving it. But the fact that it was just an advanced shipping movie, it was just like it was all about advanced shipping while you think development of May becoming like a full-time, kind of like a mother kind of thing, taking care of the fantasy, and while like you see like the ranger was trying to like try not to get May too involved with it because of the fact that she's going to get hurt because of the fact that she has to let it go.
Yeah, and that was overall the main conflict kind of going throughout the series of the movie though. But overall, it was nice to get your Ash final moment right there whenever he had to make that final call and actually had to put May and Manaphy in that little chamber, and he had to go ahead and do his hero mission and save the temple from falling. And that's all I'll have to say about that movie. So moving on ahead, we finally get to have Generation 4, and this is Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Now, this is one of my most favorite games along with the series, as well as Emerald. Emerald was in my list as well, though, but Diamond and Pearl, that's when things really started kicking up for me. So in Diamond and Pearl, you're going through this game. You got the 3 legendary sisters that make their ties in with Dialga and Palkia. And basically, you go through the game. This is the first game that was shown on DS. So it was finally nice to see how in the game you can actually have the bottom screen for your attacks, and on the top screen you can actually see the battle going on though. But overall, it was a very nice game. Team Galactic overall, they were a pretty good evil organization plot, trying to use Dialga or Palkia, depending on the version of the game that you actually play, to actually try to make a new world in a sense, but using time or space. So I'll let Northern go ahead and talk about it first.
Yeah, this is one of my not really my total favorite, but was pretty much up there. And one of the big things about this is that like you face 2 different rivals instead of just having the one common rival that you constantly fight. You got the rival that Barry or the dude, then you got the person who you don't choose is like the assistant to Professor Rowan, and she's your rival, so that's kind of interesting. And also, this is like the first one where you actually can do online battling. Like instead of just doing off the cord, you can just use Wi-Fi to battle random people.
Yeah, and that was one interesting thing to point out, and that was revolutionary. So literally, you can actually start battling with anybody across the globe with the GTS and everything. So that was a huge major step in allowing trainers to truly test out their skills throughout the world. So, Espion, you have anything else to add to it?
No, I think you guys covered it.
All right, and then Glaceon, I think you're still out of it until we hit Black and White.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on ahead, let's see here, what else we got? Okay, then we have the anime series, Diamond and Pearl. Now, I'll let somebody else go ahead and dive into it first, and I'll cover it up last. So, Espeon, you can go ahead and dive into it first.
Diamond and Pearl is sort of like the Hoenn anime where Ash gets a fresh start, with the exception of Apom, who snuck onto the ship with him. And we get a new female protagonist, which is Dawn and her Piplup. And a rival that I think was really a rival to Ash. Like there's Gary, but Gary is more annoying, but it was annoying to Ash. But I feel like Paul, the rival in this case, Ash, really did not like him because of the way Paul treated his Pokemon, which was not really abuse because it was a kid show, but he was really harsh to his Pokemon, which I feel really made Ash like want to defeat Paul, which I felt was sort of a really interesting way to develop the rival in this season.
Okay, then quick little thing. Sorry to interrupt you though, but let's see here. Northern, don't mention this, and Espeon, don't mention this either. I'm gonna cover Paul during the league. I already got that called in reserve. So, Espeon, you had anything else to say?
Not really.
All right, go ahead, Northern.
Well, the part that I really remember most of it was the fact that like this was like one of the few series where actually Ash is not really the protagonist of the actual series. It feels like Don's the main character of the series, and Ash is just kind of like there for the ride, and you kind of see most of it based off the fact that like literally like there's like half of the episodes were Dawn based and half of them were Ash based. And on top of that, also this is like one of the first ones where I actually saw a Pokemon interacting with another Pokemon with their true feelings. And I'm not referencing what it is, but if you guys seen this series, you know what I'm talking about.
So yeah, and then Glaceon, do you have anything to add in before I kind of make my dive into this?
I like intro 11.
All right. So okay, so all right, I'm gonna chime in on the last a little bit. So Diamond and Pearl overall, it was a great series, and what really made it great was the way how Ash. I would say the two major things that made this series for me was the matter of fact of Ash's seriousness within the gym battles leading all the way up. These gym battles got continuously better. And then the other two main things that I thought were critical was the matter of fact that Ash had a strong, and I mean a strong, but a rival that was different from Gary in the sense that he was much like Ash, as what Cynthia said, two sides of the same coin, both wanting the same goals, but they wanted to take two different paths to get there. Ash being the one that wanted support, back up his Pokemon that were friends and all of that. And then you had Paul over here that wanted to do the opposite. He's like, I'm just going for pure strength. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna get the strongest that there is. And even at the very beginning of the series, there was a moment where Paul caught three different Starly, and he went through and looked through all of his, and he went through his Pokedex to see the moves, the stats, and all of that. And he released many of them, except for one that he noticed that was fairly strong. He said, "Okay, I'll keep that." And he kind of had that mindset with most of his other stuff, though. But then also at the very beginning, he had that little bit of a rivalry with Elekid and Pikachu to begin with, and that was kind of like a side rivalry. It was kind of there, but not 100% there, but it was there enough. But then the thing that made it interesting between both of these two rivals, between Ash and Paul, was the main thing was Chimchar. Chimchar was my, I guess, my fan favorite OP MVP for the fourth generation. Like in the third generation, for me, it was Sceptile. In first and second generations, it was Charizard for me personally. So for this fourth generation, it was Chimchar for me. And the way how they showed Chimchar being on Paul's side and then transitioning over to Ash's side, he was basically that kind of the Pokemon that kind of showed how I was on both different teams, but this is the results I got from being on one side as compared to the other. So just seeing that, it was fairly nice. And then just having Chimchar go into Monferno and Monferno going into Infernape and having to have to control that Blaze, which it was his hidden power that Paul was trying to drag out. It was just nice and interesting to see. And then this all ties up into the final moments of the Pokemon League. Now, this league was in my top three favorite moments or favorite leagues ever because since this was an even generation, Ash was able to bring back all of his other Pokemon, so you did get to see ones like Sceptile and other Pokemon like that to actually show up in the league. And hopefully we get to see that this year, I think, in the league, in some of the battles. It doesn't have to be the final battles of what Ash will have to go through, though. But in some of the battles, it'd be nice to see some of his old Pokemon returning again, though. But anyway, the final showdown between Ash and Paul, that full 6-on-6 battle that no one will ever forget, that lasted for an entire 3 episodes. It was the most amazingest thing that I have ever seen within the anime series history. And the way how Ash and Paul duked it out over and over and over, it was pretty good. Gary's MVP on his side was like Drapion and Electivire, and then you had Ash on his side, and the main MVP for him was Infernape. And boy, Infernape knew how to fight to the bitter end. It took out literally half of Paul's team, and he was just going crazy at it. And then the final moments that you had between Ash's Infernape and Paul's Electivire when they collided together with the Thunder Punch and the Flare Blitz, how it just like shook the whole entire stadium, just made sparks fly everywhere. it was just truly something to truly remember with that series. So overall, they ended that series with a big bang. So I believe that's all we have to say about the Diamond and Pearl anime series. So the next thing we had was Pokemon Battle Revolution, in which only I kind of had a little bit of experience on this. I only had it for a week, but I kind of felt like I got the main gist out of the thing. So basically, this is kind of like your Pokemon Stadium, but more upgraded to the Wii version. So on this game, you can actually get your Diamond Pearl or even Platinum, I believe, and you can actually link your game up to the game, and basically you can hit the controls on your DS, and it will go up into the TV, and you can actually see your and you can actually see the battle being animated on your TV. So that was like the big main thing that I noticed on there. But other than that, I believe you were able to go through and select your Pokemon out and basically kind of be more like a strategy game to see how your choices could affect and see if you can actually manage to beat your rivals or your enemies or your foes and whatnot. So I believe that's all I have to say on Battle Revolution. Next, we're in the year of 2008, and we got the movie Pokemon: The Rise of Darkrai. Now, this movie overall is crazy good, and I just like to say this was the first start of like a trilogy movie that where you got to see how these movies actually had continuity between them, and that was something I felt like the movies were missing. And whenever they did add this into the movie set, it was extremely great overall, and I really enjoyed that aspect right there. So overall, this movie was an extremely great one in my opinion, and I believe Norbert and Espion and even Glaceon, since I kind of said most of the stuff about this movie, I think they said they let me had it on that one. So overall, that was an extremely great movie. And then moving on into Super Smash Bros. Brawl. In this one, you had basically you had a whole nother Smash Brothers game. Things get more legit, things get more real, and more things tend to go down. So in this game, you had Pikachu and Jigglypuff as the Pokemon in that game. You also had Lucario and you had Charizard join in, and having those two within that game really changed the aspect around. You had their Pokemon stadiums and their stuff like that. So overall, the Smash Brothers series was a really great game overall. All right, so moving forward into the next series games, we had Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time, and we had Darkness. Now, this is the game that I started off with, and it was the only Mystery Dungeon game I played, and I kind of stopped after this because I felt like no matter what Mystery Dungeon game comes out, I feel like there'll be nothing compared to the storyline that I just saw within this game right here. It was truly spectacular in my eyes and whatnot. So, Espion, do you want to go ahead and talk about this first, or you want me to go ahead?
You can.
All right, so in this game, you had your traditional aspect of the mystery dungeons. You get turned into a Pokemon, and there was a lot of backstory going into this. You didn't know where you were. You woke up on the beach. Your partner Pokemon, that whichever one you choose, will come to you, wake you up, and you're like, how did you get there, and all of that stuff. So it's truly a mystery kind of going through the game. You go through, you complete the mystery dungeons, you go through, you collect items, you save the Pokemon and all of that. And the most true thing that made this game truly special was, a matter of fact, you had Grovyle. And the story that went behind him, it was truly remarkable because you had him look like he was a thief stealing all the time gears and whatnot. But actually, in reality, he was trying to take the time gears and finish the job that you and him actually started. And there's a story in the background that went behind him and what you and your Pokemon rank your Pokemon mystery dungeon team had to do. It was truly spectacular. And then those final moments right before you're about to face Primal Dialga and that final sacrifice that Grovyle had to do, it was truly emotional and something you will never forget within the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series. And then we never knew what happened to Grovyle after that until you had the flashback from Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky, which they actually go into the story of what actually happens to him after he goes back to the future. So overall, this game was quite excellent. And that's when you got anything else to chime in on that?
I think you covered most of it, but my favorite thing is probably definitely the storyline. Like, it's a side game, and most people don't usually pay attention to the side games, but I feel like this had an amazing storyline, which is something I really like about Pokemon is the stories they can get into. And I feel like for a side game, it has a lot of story that it could have possibly be made into a main game if Mystery Dungeon ever did that.
So yeah, overall, that was a pretty good. That was a pretty good game overall, and just in general. Okay, so the next thing we had was Pokemon, My Pokemon Range. Now, we didn't have that much experience on that one, so we had to go through there and skip it again. And again, just a reminder to all y'all, if y'all have any games that y'all actually played through and we couldn't cover because we hadn't gone through it, we'd like to hear y'all in the comment section below or any of our other fan pages as we try to go through and celebrate our 20th anniversary throughout the board on all of our accounts. So we like to hear what y'all have to say. But the next main game we got is Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia. Now in this game, the second within the series of the Ranger game series, you had yourself, and this is a little bit different. Within the first game, you started off straight as a ranger, but in this one, you had to actually work your way up and get promoted, and that in itself added a little bit to the storyline. Like you started off in a small town, you started actually have to go to a ranger school and learn all the basics about it. A little annoying if you started from the first game and moved to the second game though, but it definitely helped those who might have just joined within the game just for the first time in the second region. Anyway, then you move from there, you move to, after you do so much stuff and so many missions and whatnot, you actually get promoted to be an area ranger, which is a more typical thing that you saw within the first series games. And you go through there and do all of that stuff. And then you start noticing this Team Dim Sum, which is the evil organization in this group. And you have them go through, and it's just crazy because they're much like Team Go Rock Squad. They're trying to manipulate Pokemon, but in much of a different way because they're using these they're using these robot machines that are they were called Gizzetto, something with a G. I can't actually remember it though, but it started with a G or something like that. These units that basically kind of confused and made Pokemon do random things, and they got more advanced with their technology where they could actually deal with like computers and whatnot to kind of control Pokemon though. But basically every time you saw one of those things up, you had to clear that obstacle, destroy it so you can set them free and whatnot. So ultimately they were the evil ones. You had all their admins that constantly went through an attack, and the aspect of actually capturing the Pokemon actually changed. Because within the first games, when you actually circle around and circle around the Pokemon, you will circle around it, but you cannot leave your stylus from your touchscreen, otherwise the capture will fail. So that made certain Pokemon in the first game kind of tricky, and you have to use your Pokéassist a lot. But within this game, you can actually circle around it, you can leave it, and it did so much damage to the Pokemon, and then you can go back and recircle around if they were about to attack your stylus or whatnot though. But if you wait too long, then they can actually get their health back and you got to start over from square one. So that made boss battles or boss captures even longer and even more strategic than the first series games. And the way how you can actually charge your stylus up to even do more damage and more power against your captures, that also made the game a little unique. And the last step you got was whenever you actually got promoted and you actually were able to get promoted to be a top ranger. And top rangers were mainly within the Almia region, although they made several references with your kind of rival that actually had to go over to Fior region, which was the first series games region. And then he actually managed to come back when he also got promoted to be a top ranger as well. And basically, you got promoted to also stop Team Dim Sum. And Team Dim Sum, the main thing they were using was Darkrai. And they had this ultimate machine, and basically, they were going to take over the world by basically expanding their machine's power all across the globe to where they could but they can manage to control every single Pokemon. They can call out whichever one they want and have it challenge it. So that was the main thing about Pokemon Rangers Shadows of Almia. So now we're in the year of 2009, slowly making our way to 2016. and this is when Pokemon goes platinum. Now, next biggest thing we have, and sorry for me talking so much and not being able to hear the others, but I'll allow them to chime in now. We have Pokemon Giratina and the Sky Warriors. Now, this was one of my favorites as a whole in general, and I'll let Espeon go ahead and dive into this one first.
This is probably my favorite of the trilogy with the Darkrai, Giratina, and Arceus movie. I love Shaman's character a lot, having the gratitude Pokemon be the completely opposite of gratitude, and then Giratina itself. Giratina is one of my favorite legendaries, and I love the way it was portrayed in this movie. Like, not like some evil demon Pokemon out to get everyone, but more of like, trying to keep a balance between everything.
All right, and then Northern, you have anything to add to it?
The only really thing that I really have to say about it was that the fact that the villain the main message was like, be careful what you really say, because the villain Zero got the whole thing completely mixed up with the real, like what his teacher was trying to portray, because once when the main professor realized what he was doing, he gave up on it. But Zero was like, no, we gotta conquer the negative world so that way it remains pure and clean. But that's all I really have to add, because I do agree this is one of the best films out there.
Yeah, and then if Glaceon doesn't have anything to say, then I'll go ahead and wrap up this movie. Do you have anything to say, or you're still out of it?
I'm out of it.
All right, so final thing I have to say about it is the most unique thing about this Pokemon, as a matter of fact, he had an alternate reality from the one that we actually know, and this is the reverse world. And you basically had everything reversed within this movie, and also kind of plays into the next game we'll talk about here in a second. But you basically had everything reversed from the real world, and basically in the mirrors, you can anything that was kind of like metallic, kind of like mirrors or whatnot, was a way how like Giratina could kind of move back and forth, and how you can almost kind of move back and forth between the real world and the Sortian world. And Giratina is kind of like the balancer between it, because if anything gets damaged on his side or the other side, you can kind of notice the difference between the two. And the way how Giratina governs the Sortian world, and you have Dialga with the time, and then Palkia with the space, it kind of made this trilogy kind of quite unique from any of the other Pokemon within the actual series. So go ahead and moving on straight from that, we got Pokemon Platinum. Now this was one of my most favorite games, and I'll go ahead and dive into this one first. The main aspect that made this game kind of different from Diamond and Pearl was the matter of fact that you also had, I'm just trying to think. Oh yeah, you had the Sortian world. That's the thing I'm going to cover. So the Sortian world within the video game, it was a different twist of the thing when it looked like he was going to use Dialga or Palkia to do the final scheme on Mount Coronet. He actually had an unexpected guest, and you think you have Giratina show up and try to keep the balance, and sucks you in along with the evil organization head guy. And the way how the Sorcerer World was kind of shown, it's something that you will never forget while going through the Pokemon Platinum series. And it was kind of strange how you can only go through it once mainly, and then I guess a second time where you originally would catch Giratina and Diamond and Pearl, when you have to go back and get that item to where you can turn it into the origin form within the actual regular world. But other than that, you got to make sure that you catch your memories the first time through the trip, because it's an area of the game that you will never get to see again. So, but ultimately, it was pretty good. And I'll stop right there and I'll allow Northern to go ahead and jump up in this thing with like some other unique things about Platinum. Like, for example, you had the Battle Frontier kind of make its rejoin with the 5 events. So I'll let him kind of dive up into that. All right, and actually, I guess Northern hasn't actually played Platinum or I guess any of these other games up into the rest of the thing, so he just mainly be talking about the anime and the movies and stuff. So I guess I'll go on and keep talking about it. So we have over here, we also have the Battle Frontier, and it also kind of got upgraded. Not as much as Emerald when it had 7, but rather 5. You had the Battle Tower, like you had the Battle Mansion, the Battle Dome, the Battle Factory, and one other one I think I'm missing though. But it was kind of nice to see it kind of revamped back up, and it was kind of a nice thing to see overall. And then you also had an interesting little thing where you could actually battle. I'm trying to remember. I think you could actually battle. Man, actually, I want to say that you could actually. There was some kind of special battle feature up in there that I couldn't quite remember, but I think we just about covered the gist of it mainly overall. All right, and then the next thing we have is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explores the Sky. Now, I played through this, and there was only a few things that kind of made Sky kind of different from Time and Darkness, and that's just the main thing being Shaman. So I think Espeon has a few things she want to say about this, so I'll spin it over to her.
Actually, I don't. Sorry.
Well, I'm trying to think back at it and trying to remember all the stuff that I actually did when in this game, though. But overall, I mean, other than the fact that you had Shaman's kind of mystery dungeon things that it kind of went through, it was almost pretty similar to Time and Darkness overall. So, yeah, so that was basically all that was shown within that game. All right, and then the next thing we had was Pokemon Rumble, and we didn't have much to say about that one. So moving on to the next major big thing, Pokemon Arceus and the Jewel of Life. Now, this episode overall was quite different because basically you had Arceus, which is so to say like the god Pokemon of all Pokemon that is kind of like in existence. So I'll let Norvern go ahead and discuss about this one first.
Yeah, there was an interesting kind of like controversy about Arceus and Mew, and I'm not going to discuss about that because everybody talks about that part about it. But the part that was really interesting about it was it kind of brought up a combination between 4 and I forget the other one, but the one about when it was like flashbacks. But it was basically it was about time travel and about the point when Earth kind of got started, the world got started, and when there was like this area where it was like so desert, like nobody can live. This guy saved Arceus' life. In return, he gave life to Earth, or the planet they're on. Then, like about I don't know, like a year later or something, there was time to give back the things, but somehow he betrayed Arceus, which caused Arceus to be like mad at the world and any human being. And then basically that's when you joined up with the friends and you had basically everything normal until the point when Giratina was fighting the D one, I forgot his name. And then Dalkia or something like that. And then basically that's when basically they learned that the fact that like Ash was some chosen trainer with an electric creature, and then they learned about what happened in the past, and it was just like time travel to save the world, and you learn secrets, and it was just like basically it was just like a mystery movie combined with Pokemon. It was like Clue and Pokemon combined.
All right, so Espeon, you got anything to say about this?
I think like they didn't like necessarily, just save Arceus by going back in time. I think like Arceus was intent on like destroying humanity in general. So by going back in time, Ash practically saved like all the humans, which I think is kind of probably one of his bigger shining moments of his saving the world moments, I suppose. I thought it was a fitting ending to the trilogy of the movies, though, bringing back the characters and tying it all together.
Yeah, and I would say so too. And just the way how you had like Ash go back in time and basically kind of run into the past and whatnot. It was kind of nice to see that, and it was kind of disappointing how Arceus could literally almost be defeated by like a watery kind of substance that over a quick amount of time could actually turn into like almost like hardcore steel. It's kind of sad to see how he can almost be taken over like that, but ultimately he ultimately he did get out of it though. But overall, it was a pretty nice movie, and like you said, it was a nice way to kind of end the series as a whole, the trilogy as a whole. So moving on, next we have the remixes of the second generation. We have Heart Gold and we have Soul Silver. All right, so for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, since I'm the main one that kind of played through it, mainly Soul Silver, I'll just talk about it. So ultimately, it was just your second generation kind of remix, and yeah, ultimately overall, you just had the key unique thing that made this one different was the Poker Walker, in which you were actually able to train your Pokemon on your game, send it to the Poke Walker, and then play like little fun activities to kind of actually train it on the go. You can slip that Poke Walker in your pocket. I remember my brother going through and playing the game and whatnot. And, like as you walk, it's literally like you're training your Pokemon. Like they get experience and whatnot. They learn the moves, and you can get on there and play certain little things to raise up its experience or its happiness and yada yada yada. So in a way, you can almost train 7 different Pokemon in your team and kind of alternate in between because that's what my brother did. So that was kind of it was kind of interesting and a little bit new. That kind of made this series kind of stand out. But overall, I think we. Oh, and then also the Battle Frontier that was kind of similar in Platinum also got moved within these games. So you also had that as well. So not much more I guess we can say about Johto, except for the fact that you also had this was the first way how you were able to get your Johto and Pokemon, all of them back within within the main series games, and you're actually able to re-record or you were able to recatch all of them. So that was very nice to see. Oh, and something we didn't mention that's kind of important was, matter of fact, the transferring up from game. So Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, you can stick the game, and Heart Gold, Soul Silver, you can actually stick the game up in there, and you can transfer the Pokemon, go to Power Park, and basically go through and catch. However, the bad thing was Diamond and Pearl, you had that little restriction up in there to where you can only catch so many a day. I think it was in like Platinum as well, but in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and they got rid of that restriction where you can do as many as you want. So yeah, that's how you got the move from Generation 3 up into Generation 4. So I believe that's all we have to say about Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And then next, we had some other games. And next we had Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs. This was the final trilogy, the final last ending of the Ranger series. And ultimately, unfortunately, well, I'll give it back to you. So, originally, you're on your star after, or you're on some kind of because you're basically trying to, I believe, the upper heaven, I can escape over to the top ranger area that decided but unfortunately, something happens. I think it was attack or something like that. So you fall into the Caribbean action. And basically, it was you were the main only ranger that was there. I believe there was one other ranger that was there locally, since it was like more peaceful region. So I'm making sure the stuff was going down. So basically, you went to the game. The thing that made this game different from the first two is, matter of fact, that you could actually catch Pokemon like Raikou, Suicune, and Entei, and once you caught them, big major Pokemon like them or other side things that you completed on quests, you were actually able to draw a Guardian sign at certain moments in the game, and you can actually recall that legendary or recall whatever Pokemon that were back at that moment. Like you could recall Latios and go up into the sky, and that's basically your main way of transportation around the whole region. And then I can't remember exactly what the name of the evil organization name was, but overall, their plot within this series of games was just about as good as the first two series. So that actually closed the Pokemon Ranger game series. Next, we actually had Pokemon Park Wii Pikachu's Adventure, but we didn't really have much to say about that game overall. So that brings us to the year 2011, and and then basically we had 2011, and we had the movie, and we had the Zorak movie. Now I'll go ahead and let Northern talk about it first.
Well, this is basically one of my favorites, not because of the fact it was a good story, story, or whatever, because it had one of my favorite Pokemons in it, and it was basically kind of making up for Pokemon, the fourth movie, Forever, by having Celebi come back in and using one of my favorite Pokemon, evolution form, use the illusion power to like elude himself into any of the three legendary Pokemon, because he had a force to do it because he thought that it's, I don't know, like best friend or daughter or something was the kid, or best friend was captured, and so it was doing the evils because they thought they were going to like hurt it or whatever. And I kind of like it because I had one of my favorite Pokemons in it. That's really it.
So yeah, overall, it was a pretty good film. Espion, you have anything to chime in?
Nope.
All right, and then I guess I'll say my little spill on it. Zorak was another one of those mystery Pokemon, which it was getting a little close to what we actually knew what it was actually going to be, but it was another one of those ones where it was basically showcasing the next region game within this actual movie with Zora and Zorak. So basically, this is one of those ones that probably I know the least amount of information on going back and thinking about it though. But I do remember how those three shiny legendary dogs were up in this movie. So the action was pretty good and the storyline behind it was pretty good overall. So the next biggest thing we have, in which I know before we even get started, may have not been the most favorite thing within Pokemon fans in general, though, but we have to talk about it anyway. It is the anniversary after all. We have Pokemon the series Black and White. Now, I'll let one of you two dive into it first. So I guess Espeon, you can go ahead and talk about it first.
Like Charizard said, it seems like the black and whites weren't a favorite among Pokemon fans. But personally, Generation 5 is probably my favorite generation of all. It was the generation where I really got back into Pokemon, I said. Like when I was younger, I was interested, but when I really became serious, it was because of Generation 5. Um, what I really liked about it was the storyline itself, because we get an introduction to N and Team Plasma. And unlike the other villainous teams, at first it seems like they are trying to liberate the Pokemon. And they bring up a lot of good points of like, is Pokemon battling like abuse? Are we taking away Pokemon's rights? And Team Plasma is led by their king, a trainer named N, who wants to summon one of the legendary dragons. And he wants the protagonist to summon the other dragons, and he wants to defeat them in battle to prove that his truth or ideal of Pokemon being free should be right. But I don't want to spoil anything, but Team Plasma has a whole other background that's going on in the shadows, unaware of N or the protagonist at first.
So yeah, overall, it was a pretty good, it was a decent series. The only thing I have to say about this was, matter of fact, how Ash had to wind up catching way, and I say way too many Pokemon to where it was hard for him to kind of develop each one to kind of get the full aspect. Like you never knew every time a new gym leader popped up, you never knew what kind of Pokemon he had on the team. Like I think by the time he was done with this series, I think if I remember, he had somewhere around 10 or so Pokemon. Everywhere from, let's see if I can recall them out. You had Snivy, you had Oshawott, you had the pig at the end, you had Revani, you have
Boldor
Boldor. Yeah, that's the one I was about to say. Boldor. Yeah, Crocodile. Crocodile, I guess, was one of my favorites. Yeah, Scraggy
and Pheasant.
and Unpheasant. I feel like I'm missing a couple of more. Oh, Palpitoad, which I'm like, man, that thing literally only showed up for I think maybe 2 episodes at the most. It was kind of one of the weirdest captures ever, though. I think that puts us at 9, and I feel like I maybe might be missing one more, but yeah, it is what it is, though. But you get my point. So overall, however, the animation that was shown in it, the animation was good, although the storyline kind of lagged off a little bit though. But the cool little thing about Black and White was, a matter of fact, how Pikachu uses that Iron Tail and it actually turns into like a steel Iron Tail. And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of nice. But then when we move on into the 6th gen and moving to Kalos, then that move disappears, and I'm like, oh man. Oh, and then one other interesting thing to note is Pikachu as his moves change on. He used to have Volt Tackle at the end of the season, but then this is whatever he learned, Electro Ball. A cool move. I was like, man, I hate to see Volt Tackle go, but
It's our destiny. Pokemon.